Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to try and help you maybe figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. Last time, we were talking about teacher expectations, how that can follow a kid through school, and if you have a bad teacher one year, that might set you up, oh, bless me, for some problems the next year. And we're going to take up a little more on that. Teacher expectations remain important as children approach and enter adolescence. And we all remember our favorite teachers and the teachers we don't like so much. So teachers do play a pretty big role in the developing child. How can school best enhance children's development? Throughout the 20th century, conflicting educational philosophies, along with historical events, brought great swings in educational theory and practices. From the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, which, 2 of those don't even start with an R, but, if you down in the country, it might. To child-centered methods that focused on children's interests, and then, when competition from Russia and then from Japan loomed and test scores plummeted, back to the basics. In the 1980s, a series of governmental and educational commissions proposed plans for improvement, ranging from more homework to a longer school day and school year to a total reorganization of schools and curricula. And of course, parents are always on board with these big changes. Not. Today, many educators recommend teaching children in the early grades by integrating subject matter fields and building on children's natural interests and talents. Teaching reading and writing, for example, in the context of a social studies project, or teaching math concepts through the study of music. They favor cooperative projects, hands-on problem solving, and close parent-teacher cooperation. And again, like I said, if you can get along with the teachers, you should. If you can't, then you certainly can lobby to have your child put in a different classroom. My goodness. Remember, you are your child's number one advocate. Many contemporary educators also emphasize a 4th R, reasoning. Children who are taught thinking skills in the context of academic subject matter perform better on intelligence tests and in school and in life in general. We have a whole lot of people out there who were never taught reasoning, never taught to think, and it shows. Everyday activities also can be routes to enhancing thinking skills, because they're going to have to get out into the world and think for themselves. And if you nor the school system prepared them to do that, they're going to have major problems. Students learn better when taught in a variety of ways, emphasizing creative and practical skills as well as memorization and critical thinking, because it all ties in. All of these things work together to make you a person who's competent and successful in the world. Oh my goodness, my cough's trying to come back. Not liking it. When the Chicago Public Schools in 1996 ended social promotion, the practice of promoting children who do not meet academic standards, many observers hailed the change. However, some educators maintain that the alternative, forcing failing students to go to summer school before they can graduate or to repeat a grade, is short-sighted. I remember good old Bush and his No Child Left Behind, thing, and, we know why. But, some kids just have problems. And it's not always keep giving them the work that works for them. Sometimes it's changing a teacher, changing an attitude from home. I mean, some kids just need extra help. Although retention in some cases can be a wake-up call, more often it is the first step on a remedial track that leads to lowered expectations, poor performance, and ultimately dropping out of school. So, once you give that child that mindset that they're a failure, then they think they are, and they're not going to try. A number of countries with well-regarded educational systems, such as Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Japan, and South Korea, have automatic promotion policies. So, no matter how they do, they move on with their peers. Many educators say the only real solution to a high failure rate is to identify at-risk students early and intervene before they fail. So, see the kids who are struggling. Intervene. They might need a tutor. They might need extra time out. When I was in elementary school, me and my friends and that, we tutored other kids when we were in fourth. We tutored other third graders who weren't catching on very well. And I think that's something that they can bring back into schools is peer tutoring, for kids who are, doing well, to help those who are maybe not doing so well. Because kids will listen to other kids better than they will a teacher, it's, a good thing. In a longitudinal study of kindergarten through 8th graders in the Chicago schools, retained students did more poorly on math and reading achievement tests than peers who had been promoted. So that shows you that failing does not work. And also did more poorly in math than their new, younger classmates. So a kid who fails has a worse attitude, because they didn't move on with their classmates. They're a year older than everybody else in there, and, they start getting the attitude like, why bother? When reading to children, ask open-ended questions. Excuse me. Beginning with what, why, and how. Help children find the most important points in what they read, see, or hear. Ask children to compare new information with what they already know. Identifying commonalities and differences can help children organize information, which helps them think as well as remember. And you can do this throughout the day, what do you think they thought about when they did that, when you're watching TV, when they're reading a book? You can pull these things out and help them learn. Teach children not to accept a statement that contradicts common knowledge without reliable proof. Encourage children to write. Putting thoughts on paper forces them to organize their thoughts. Projects may include keeping a journal, writing a letter to a famous person, and presenting an argument to parents, say, for an increase in allowance, or a special purchase or privilege. Encourage children to think imaginatively about what they have learned. How do you think the soldiers in the American Revolution felt at Valley Forge? What do you suppose they wore? When writing a poem or drawing a picture, encourage children to produce a first version and then to polish or revise it. Because especially creative kids, they want to do it once. They want to blurt it out and they're done with it. They don't want to have to polish it, revise it, or whatever. So it's good to have them do a first draft, a second one, and then the final draft. Like when we were writing in school, we had to do a first draft, or one the teacher marked all up, and then the final draft, which was the one that got, submitted and, put in places. Show children how to approach a problem by identifying what they do and don't know about it, designing a plan to solve it, carry out the plan, and then deciding whether it has worked. Ask children to invent a new product, such as a gadget to ease a household chore. Teach children such skills as reading a map and using a microscope. And of course, nowadays, everybody's got it on their phone, so reading a map's kind of gone the way of the dodo, but hey, it might happen. Your phone could go out of battery, be out where there's no service, so it's not a bad thing to teach them. And provide opportunities to practice them. Because the more opportunities to do new stuff, the more they're learning, the more the brain is growing. The homework debate is far from new in the United States. Historical swings in homework use have reflected shifts in educational philosophy. By the 1940s, progressive, child-centered education held sway, and homework had lost favor. Homework time declined, and a number of states and school districts banned it. And that was probably because parents were like, we don't want to do this. We don't want to help with this. We have other things we're doing. In the 1950s, when the Soviet Union's Sputnik launch brought calls for more rigorous science and math education, and again in the early 1980s, amid worries about the United States' competitive position toward Japan, more homework became a battle cry and campaign to upgrade U.S. educational standards. Because, of course, we have to keep up with these other people. You know, we can't fall behind. Goodness sakes. By 1997, according to one survey, first through third graders were spending about 2 hours a week on homework, 3 times as much as in 1981. And in one of my children's cases, they routinely brought home about 2 hours of homework a day. And, you know, I was like, we're doing our best, but yeah, we can't get this all done. And the teacher was like, oh, well, this is what they recommend. Well, just do your best, you know. And it's like, hey, we don't have 2 hours to sit and do homework. We really don't. You know, we have to do the homework. We have to do the housework. We have to have dinner. You have to have baths and go to bed. You know, there's not the spare 2 hours block there to do this in. Still, U.S. children, especially adolescents, spend less time on homework than students in other developed countries. Homework advocates claim that it is discipline and excuse me, that they need to learn to discipline the mind and develop good work habits, improve retention, and this lets students cover more ground than they could in the classroom alone. Homework is a bridge between home and school, increasing parental involvement. And some parents don't want that. Some parents, sadly, do not want to deal with homework. They're like, that's your job at school. That's not your job here. You got chores to do here and things to do. And, you know, opponents claim that too much homework leads to boredom, anxiety, or frustration, overburdens children, discourages intrinsic motivation, and usurps time from family life and other worthwhile activities, including sleep. And I know that's true. Having taught younger kids and having my own kids at home with learning, you put too much on them, they're just like, you know, they're done. Child psychologists report an increase in homework-related anxiety. Once again, some critics want to ban homework, at least for young children. Research supports a balanced view, recognizing that homework can improve achievement and long-term success, but also has costs. A comprehensive review of nearly 120 studies found that the value of homework depends on many factors, including the age, ability, and motivation of the child, because every kid is different. Some kids might want to learn a lot. Other kids might not. They might get overwhelmed. So every kid is different, and you have to kind of look out for that. Especially, you know, the teachers might not, I hate to use the word care, but they might not. The amount and purpose of homework, the home situation, and the classroom follow-up. I've had teachers that they didn't give a crap about your homework. You did it. You turned it in. They just made a check that you did it. And, you know, it's like, why bother? The older the child, the more effective homework can be. While it has strong benefits for high school students, it has only moderate benefits for junior high school students. And then only if limited to 2 hours a night. And virtually no benefits for elementary school students as compared with in-class study. So, you know, elementary schools, listen to that one. You can send home those little worksheets or whatever. But it's the in-class study, the teacher, the other kids around them, the thing that really makes them want to learn this. Homework seems to work best when assignments are not overly complicated or completely unfamiliar. And I remember that from when I was in school. We had a teacher, a math teacher, who would drop this unfamiliar thing on you as a homework sheet, and you're expected to figure this out. And the parents would be there. What do they mean? What is this? What do they mean? I don't know. Well, they had to tell you how to do it. No, they didn't. This is totally new. Well, they wouldn't do that to you. You know, they did. So sometimes this happens, and it's a bad idea. When material is spread out over several assignments, and when the need for parental involvement, which varies in effectiveness and can create tension at home, is kept to a minimum. Because, like I said, a lot of teachers don't like parents, a lot of parents who don't like teachers, and, you know, y'all should just work together for the kid. You know, shouldn't be about a little battle between you guys. But if they're not doing what's right for the kid, then you can make it a little battle between you guys. So, you know, junior high and high school students who spend more time on homework tend to get better grades. And I almost always did my homework. There was a class that I failed half the year of on purpose because I just didn't like going to that class. I mean, the guy basically didn't care about the class. He was a coach, and there were several sports guys in the class, and he talked to them all the time about sports. He put the assignment up on the board and expect us to do it. And I wanted to do something more worthwhile. I just didn't care. It was an elective anyway, so, I'm like, well, if he doesn't care, I don't care. I'll just go do something else, and I get it passed to go paint sets or go, in art and work on something, rather than be in this person's class, because if they didn't care, I didn't care. But this is less true at the elementary level. The more homework younger children get, the more negatively they feel toward it. In a survey of 709 second through 12th graders, about 1/3 of lower grade students said they typically did not finish their homework. So, when the little kids get home, they want to play, they want to decompress. The parents might have things for them to be doing, and, they're not emotionally and mentally ready to hop right back in on some homework. Whereas the older kids are. They understand this is their education, it's important, and they're going to do what needs to be done. Even the upper grades, students who received lengthy assignments tended not to complete them. So you got to keep that assignment reasonable. If you tell them write a 20-page paper, that's great. If you tell them write a 100-page paper, they're like, oh man. If you tell them a 200-page paper, they're just like, I don't even know. I'm not going to bother. There are kids who'll do that. So, just use some common sense, teachers. Homework then has value, but only in moderation and when geared to students' developmental levels. If you're pulling out these random worksheets that aren't even on what you're doing, you might think that's just keeping their brain occupied, but it's not. It's screwing them up. It's screwing the parents up. And they're going to hate you for it, honestly. Assignments in the elementary grades should be short and easy enough for children to succeed. Research-based recommendations range from 1 to 3 15-minute assignments a week in the primary grades to 4 or 5 assignments a week, each lasting 75 to 120 minutes. In grades 10 to 12, instead of grading homework, teachers should use it to diagnose learning problems. And that's something, that teachers don't even really think about. But, homework, they're doing it at home, so it's a more, I hate to say, honest piece of work than in the classroom, because in the classroom they can look off Johnny or Jane or whatever. At home they can't do that. So it's a better teller of what they can and can't do. Unless, there's parents who just do the homework for the kid. I got accused of that, and I was like, no, that's not a thing. So, but, you can sit there with the kid and make sure they get the answer right. And that's what I believed in, is like, we keep doing it till you get it right. And they probably hated me worse than they hated their teachers, because, you were going to get it right. In a second study of the same sample, those who had been in a high-quality early childhood education program were less likely to be held back in school or to drop out of high school, because they learned early on learning is important, and, there are benefits to learning. Summer school may be helpful as an early intervention. Disadvantaged children during the summer months tend to fall behind their more advantaged peers, who have more opportunities for summer reading and other learning experiences. A 3-year study is following about 450 low-income Baltimore elementary school students randomly assigned to summer instruction in reading and writing. In the first year of the study, kindergartners who attended at least 75% of the time outscored 81% of their peers who did not participate, and first graders outscored 64%. So, early education does help. 81%, that's a big number. So that's telling you there that early education does make a difference, So if you want your child to succeed, you might want to make sure they get into a, preschool or kindergarten that can help them do that. Computer literacy and the ability to navigate the World Wide Web are opening new possibilities for individualized instruction, global communication, and early training in independent research skills. You can get your kid a computer or a tablet, or you can take them to the library and let them use one. But that's an important skill nowadays. Because if they don't have that skill nowadays and they have a job where they have to use a computer or tablet, there are some stores that don't even have the cash register anymore. They have the tablet. It's an important skill for them to learn to navigate their life. However, this tool poses dangers. Beyond the risk of exposure to harmful or inappropriate material, students need to learn to critically evaluate information they find in cyberspace and to separate facts from opinions and advertising. And yes, we had a little problem with the computer at one point, that we had to adjust some things. But people, when you first get on there, I had some family members play silly with me, and I'm like, what? And like, aha, you believe that? And I'm like, because I trusted you, not because I trusted that information in particular, and so people were, playing games with us when we first got on a computer. I know what that was about, I wouldn't have done the same to them, so I don't even know. But, you need to teach the kid that everything you see on there in the internet is not necessarily true. I have a child now that we're having discussions with him. He's 23 years old, but we're having discussions with him on not everything you read is true. So, In a major international math and science examination, fourth graders from 7 countries out of 26 significantly outperformed U.S. fourth graders in math. And teachers in 5 of these countries reported that students never or almost never used computers in class. So, the American kids are behind our, more developed neighbors in, computer literacy, and that's a shame. Why do so many children of East Asian origin do so well in U.S. schools? Cultural influences and educational practices in these children's countries of origin may hold the key. The school day and year are longer than in U.S. schools, and the curriculum is set centrally. Classes are larger, about 40 to 50 students, and teachers spend more time teaching the whole class, whereas U.S. children spend more time working alone or in small groups and thus receive more individual attention but less total instruction. And that's because in other countries, especially, over there in Japan and China, the children are taught respect. You better not disrespect your teacher in their earshot, because then they're going to talk to your parents, and your parents, over there, it's big trouble. So that's how a teacher over there can handle 40 to 50 kids, because those kids will behave. So, and unfortunately, our classrooms are a lot of discipline issues because parents don't want to discipline their children. And like I said, discipline doesn't have to be beating your kid. There are other ways to discipline your child. And if you don't know what they are, look it up, because you need to teach your child some discipline. Because if they go out into the world and undisciplined, hear, crazy person, then they're going to have problems, They're not going to have an easy time with life. East Asian cultures share values that foster educational success. In Japan, a child's entrance into school is a major occasion for celebration. Japanese and Korean parents spend a great deal of time helping children with schoolwork. Japanese children who fall behind are tutored or go to jukus, private remedial and enrichment schools. So they even have, private schools and tutors where if your child's falling behind, you take them to these and they catch them up and get this fixed. So, it's like if there's a problem, why don't you work on fixing the problem? It's just some common sense there. Chinese and Japanese mothers view academic achievement as a child's most important pursuit. And if parents here, unfortunately, there are a lot of ignorant parents in the United States. Sorry, get mad if you want to when I say that. But there are a lot of parents here who say, you don't need no education. I didn't have no education. It didn't hurt me none. Really? Are you sure about that? Are you sure about that? Sounds like it did. Their children spend more time on homework, like it better, and get more parental help than U.S. children. Again, because education is valued. Whereas in here, there are places in the United States where education is not valued. Whereas U.S. students socialize after school and engage in sports and other activities, Asian students devote themselves almost entirely to study. East Asians carry over these values and practices to their new land. Many Asian American families see education as the best route to upward mobility. The child's school success is a prime goal of parenting. Nor is this academic success at the price of social skills. In a study of 36 first and second grade children of Chinese immigrants, the Chinese American children were equally well adjusted as a control group of European American children, which most of you are. If you don't think of yourself as European American, where did your ancestors come from? Where did they come from? And if your answer is somewhere over in Europe, then you're European American. You're not a Native American. Unless you are a Native American, unless you came from a tribe from the Americas, you're a European American. Just so you understand that. And had more advanced academic skills. Of course, Asian American children grow up in the U.S. culture and absorb its values, their attitudes towards learning may change, which means then they might get a bad attitude about education as well, and that's a shame, Between 1979 and 99, with rising immigration, the number of U.S. school children who have difficulty speaking English more than doubled their own language. From 1.25 million to 2.6 million. Approximately 8.8 million U.S. children speak a language other than English at home. And that's why we have these ESL, classes. Because not everyone can speak the foreign language. We have, like I say, English-speaking Americans who can't speak their language, so it's a problem. Similar trends exist in Western European countries, and schools there also are under pressure to meet these special needs. because as more of us travel the world and immigrate, it's hard on a kid who comes into a new school in a new country and they can't speak the language. And, then they're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Whereas the main goal of European programs is to preserve students' cultural identity, most U.S. programs, as mandated by the Federal Equal Education Opportunity Act, aim chiefly at helping non-English speaking students learn English well enough to compete academically with native English speakers. So whereas in other countries, they might celebrate the culture, in America, it's like you need to speak English proficiently. And it does help you. But again, erasing a person's previous culture is a little bit racist, and it's not the best way for them to succeed in life. If they're made ashamed, oh, your language is bad, you got to speak this language. That kind of gives us the wrong message, doesn't it? And that's where I'm going to leave you. So I hope that maybe this helped you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. Until next time.